haven't seen my housemate Liam in almost a week now. This is especially weird because Liam doesn't really leave the house. I'm not trying to insult him or anything, but he's been working from home ever since the pandemic. There's not a whole lot of reasons for him to go anywhere. And he's told me on God only knows how many occasions how he hates feeling so cooped up all the time. Occasionally, he'll go for a walk or hang out with friends, but when he does, he'll usually at least tell me he's going somewhere. Dropping off the face of the earth for a solid 6 days isn't like him, and it's left me pretty damn worried about him. I tried calling his phone, but it just goes straight to voicemail. I think it's either off or dead. I talked to some of his friends, and even his boss, but they haven't heard from him either. Our neighbor across the hall, Miss Amanda, said she hasn't seen him enter or leave the apartment in over a week. I even called his mom, but she hasn't heard from him either. I've done everything I could to find him. I even called the police and asked to file a missing persons report, but nothing's come of it. Miss Amanda keeps telling me not to worry. She says that he's probably off with some woman. But I know Liam. He's been my best friend since high school. That's not like him. Then, today, I found the journal. He'd left it in my room. I hadn't noticed it up until recently, since it just sort of looked like any other dollar store journal. The fact that I finally picked it up was more of an accident than anything else. I was looking for a different journal I had, where I had written down some things I needed from the store when I picked it up. I'd opened it to thumb through the pages, and found that somebody had written something that took up the bulk of the journal. It wasn't just scattered notes like the ones I kept. This was something else. I'd flipped back to the beginning to see if I could jog my memory as to why I had this thing, and that's when I saw it. In Liam's familiar handwriting on the first page. My name. To Rose. I've read through this thing a few times, but I still can't entirely wrap my head around it. I'm 100% certain that Liam wrote this for me, but, well, I don't know whether to take any of it at face value, or if I should see it as some sign that he went crazy. None of it makes any sense. I'm gonna take it to the police later today. But before I do that, I thought it might be a good idea to share the contents elsewhere first. I'm not entirely sure what the police are gonna get out of this, or if they'll even be able to make sense of it. So I'm sort of hedging my bets a little bit. Everything after this point is what Liam wrote in his journal. I haven't taken anything out or added anything back in. Maybe this is just some sign that he went crazy. God, I hope it's just a sign he went crazy. But maybe, well, it'll be easier if you read it for yourself. To Rose. I don't know how all of this is going to end. If this is the last go-around and it doesn't end the way I want it to, then I need you to know what happened to me. I need you to know why I did what I did. I need you to know what I've seen over and over and over again. It started, well, today. But not today. How many days has it been? 5? 6? More? Christ, I genuinely don't remember. The first day was almost normal. It was on Friday. I woke up, went into my office to work, and the day just sort of played out. I actually remember the least about the first day. I've sort of said before, every day sort of blends into the other. So the same kind of applied here, I guess. When you came home from work, we had Thai for dinner, and then we watched a movie. Although, you played on your Switch most of the time. I went to bed a little earlier, since I was kinda exhausted. You stayed up, and that seemed to be about it. Until the smoke alarm woke me up. The noise had startled me out of bed, and I woke up to find you in my bedroom, half asleep and trying to shake me awake. By the time the alarm had gone off, I already smelled the smoke. but I don't think I grasped just how serious the situation was at first. We grabbed some essentials before leaving the apartment and trying to get down the stairs. But I remember that before we even reached them, you froze. Through the window into the stairwell, we could see the flickering glow of the flames. I'd only ever seen campfires and candles before. Never a fire like this. The glow wasn't gentle. There was something violent about it. Something angry. Maybe I'm just adding emotion to it, I don't know. We knew we couldn't make it down the stairs, though. We'd panicked, talking about if there was another way out. There was another stairwell on the other side of our floor, so we went there only to find the same thing. The same fire. It was in the stairwells, blocking out escape. I remember we weren't the only ones by those stairs. There were others from our floor out there. Some of them had fire extinguishers and were trying to put out the inferno, but it had already grown too big. A few were already heading back to their apartments to try and call for help through the windows. You'd said we should do the same. I'd followed you. We'd opened our windows and we'd called for help. We saw the flashing lights from the fire engines, but the smoke was getting thicker and thicker, and despite their best efforts, they didn't seem any closer to reaching us. The fire was in the hall. I remember going out to look. I remember the fear on your face, the way you'd cried as you realized that we weren't getting out. The smoke got thicker and thicker, making it harder and harder to breathe. And in the end, with nowhere else to go, you and I had huddled on the couch, trapped and hopeless, praying for salvation that never came as the smoke filled our lungs. You died in my arms the first time, but I was barely aware of it myself. I could just feel your body going still, giving one final little shudder, and one last choked sob as the life left you. And in my final moments, I held you close and told you I loved you before slipping away myself. Then I woke up, and it was Friday again. I checked on you. You were alive and well. You asked me what was wrong, and I told you I just had a nightmare. At the time, that's exactly what I thought it was. A horrible nightmare, where we were trapped in our burning apartment. You went to work. I went to my office. And the day sort of played out again. I remember the uncanny feeling of deja vu that hung over everything. The messages I got from my colleagues seemed familiar. The client calls I was on played out exactly as they had before. I told myself I was just rattled, and tried to convince myself that this wasn't what I thought it was. But I think I already knew that something was very, very wrong. That night, you came home. We had Thai. We watched a movie. You played on your Switch. I was tired, but I didn't go to sleep. Instead, I just waited, in case the fire started again. And sure enough, it did. Just like before, we tried to get out. We were the first to make it to the stairwell this time. Only the fire was already there. I remember seeing it on the landing immediately below us. Bright and angry. There was fire in the other stairwell, too. At some point, someone had pulled the fire alarm, but the sprinklers wouldn't turn on. And the fire was too big for the fire extinguishers to handle. Just like before, we retreated to our building, and I hoped to God that this time they would save us. But as the smoke filled our lungs and I felt you die in my arms again, I knew they wouldn't. I woke up in my own bed again on Friday morning. I called into work this time. I I knew something was obviously going on. I'm no expert on fire, but from what I'd seen the other night, the fires that had trapped us hadn't come up from another floor. They almost looked like they'd been started in the stairwell. I don't know why the hell anyone would do that, but I aimed to find out. I went out and bought my own fire extinguisher this time. When you came home from work, we had Thai, then watched a movie. You played on your Switch the whole time. After you went to bed, I took my fire extinguisher and went down to the stairwell, thinking that maybe I'd catch whoever lit that fire. Maybe I could stop them. Or if not, then maybe I could at least put out the fire before it grew too large to stop us from getting out. I sat waiting for almost 2 hours, watching the time closely in case I somehow fucked this up, so I'd know exactly when the fire started. Funnily enough, I wasn't that afraid to fuck this up. Obviously, I had a pretty good idea of what would happen if I did. I'd wake up that morning and do everything again. Only this time, I'd do it better. I remember that at one point, I heard the door to the stairwell open behind me, and heard a few footsteps on the concrete floor. I hadn't thought too much of it, and had only briefly looked back, expecting either one of our neighbors or you. But it was neither. I didn't know who it was. He towered over me and was dressed in a gray hoodie with a Halloween monster mask covering his face. He stared down at me, a look in his eyes that was very hard to read. He almost looked like he was panicking. In one hand, he carried a large orange gas can. I knew what he was there for, and got up immediately to ask him just what the hell he thought he was doing. But the moment I took a step toward him, I saw a flash of metal in his hand. He dropped the gas can and ran at me. The next thing I knew, I could feel a white-hot pain in my chest. He ripped the knife out of me, then stabbed me again and again and again. I collapsed back down the stairs, tumbling down into a broken heap on the landing. And as I felt myself slip away, I saw him staring down at me, before reaching for his gas can once more. I woke up on Friday morning again. Like I said before, I wasn't afraid of fucking this up. Now I knew that our mystery assailant entered the stairwell on our floor. He didn't take the stairs up. In hindsight, I probably should have figured that part out sooner. I also now knew that he'd be carrying a knife. I called into work again, then went out to buy myself a fire extinguisher and a gun. That evening, you came home. We had Thai, watched a movie, and you went to bed. I stayed up, made sure my gun was loaded, then waited. Last time I checked my phone the night before, it had been just past midnight when the mystery man had arrived. So I waited. I camped out in the hallway close to midnight, watching the door to the stairs from a short distance away, and waiting. At 12:11 a.m., I heard the elevator door open. I saw a man in a Halloween zombie mask walking towards the stairs. He was carrying a red gas can. He didn't seem to see me. I thought I'd hesitate more when it came to killing someone. I really did. But the vivid memory of this asshole stabbing me to death still lingered in my mind. And I'm not gonna lie, I was feeling a little vindictive. When he went into the stairwell, I followed him, gun in hand. He was halfway down the stairs when he heard the door opening behind him, and turned around to look at me, eyes widening as he did. I really wish I could say that I said something cool before shooting him, but I didn't. Instead, I fired the gun 6 times and hit him twice. He collapsed down the stairs. spilling his gas can as he did, and screaming as he collapsed to the ground. He grasped at his chest, struggling to breathe as he did. I shot him 2 more times. One of those bullets went into his head. His body jerked violently when I shot him, then twitched a few more times before going still. I saw a wet patch spreading down the crotch of his jeans, and felt more disgusted by that than what I'd just done. Then again, having already been killed no less than 3 times by this guy didn't exactly put me in the most sympathetic mood. As I stood over his body, I reached down to peel the mask off his face. I didn't expect to recognize him. I didn't expect his face to be one I'd ever seen before in my life. But it was. Do you remember Daryl Stevens from down the hall? He was an older guy of about 40. Kind of heavyset with a scruffy brown beard. I do. I remember he'd moved out quietly about 3 months back. I remember that because the movers made so much noise and I was trying to work. I never thought I'd see Daryl again, and I never thought he'd be the one behind all this. But I couldn't deny what was right in front of me. I knew that face. It was Daryl, and he was dead because of me. Everything that happened next was something of a blur. The gunshots had woken several others up, and the fire alarm was triggered. Someone else had set a fire in the other stairwell. I guess that meant that Daryl had a partner. Only this time, nobody died. You got out, as did I. The firefighters were late. The building didn't sustain that much damage, and nobody got hurt. It was as close to a happy ending as we were gonna get. Save for one thing. I'd still shot a man in cold blood. I didn't try to hide what I'd done. I told the truth, and the police took me in for questioning that night. I slept in a cell, and when I woke up, it was Saturday. And I thought I'd done it. I really did. Then I heard about the shooting from one of the guards. Early that morning, someone had shown up at the apartment building armed with a rifle. He had killed 3 police officers, gone up to the 14th floor, and started shooting. No doubt it was Daryl's partner. You must have been in the apartment gathering your things. Or maybe our apartment wasn't damaged and you were trying to sleep. I don't know exactly how it happened. All I know is that you died, along with 5 others, before the gunman took his own life. I thought I'd saved us. I was wrong. You were still dead. I'd still failed. And there was only one thing to do. I used the bedsheets in my cell to hang myself. It's funny. Of all the ways to die, suicide really was the worst. With the smoke inhalation, it was just like going to sleep. When I got stabbed, it hurt like a son of a bitch. But at least I bled out quickly. Hanging myself? That was slow. Tedious, almost. I choked and struggled, kicking my legs as I slowly asphyxiated. I needed to fight my body's own natural urge to survive, which was the hardest part. When my consciousness started to slip, it was almost a blessing. I'll admit, I did wonder if maybe it wouldn't work. I wondered if maybe, just maybe, I'd die for real this time. If there was no going back. But I'd weighed my options and decided it was worth the risk. Since you're reading this, I can imagine you know that it was. I died and I woke up again on Friday morning. I called into work. Then I went to the store to buy a gun. After that, I looked up Daryl Stevens. It wasn't hard to find him. I actually just needed to call our superintendent and said we'd gotten some of his mail by mistake. He gave me a forwarding address. It was a house in the more run-down part of town. Nothing particularly special, and it absolutely seemed like Daryl could have afforded better. But I digress. I drove down to his new address, gun in my passenger seat. I parked across the street and watched the house for a while. There were 2 cars in the driveway. I imagined that Daryl was home, and I knew he wasn't alone. Whoever was with him, there was a good chance that they were whoever his partner was. The same person who'd set the fire in the other stairwell, and the same person who'd come back and started shooting. I did take some time to contemplate what I was about to do. Killing Daryl the first time hadn't been that difficult, but I'd only done it when he was on the verge of burning the building down. This time, I'd be catching them with their pants down. More or less. Hopefully. This already felt different than shooting Daryl when he was there, ready to burn the building down. You could argue that was self-defense. This was murder. Then again, judging by the way he and his friend had set a fire in the stairwell of our floor, judging by the way he'd been carrying a knife just in case he got caught, what Daryl had done was murder too. What he'd done couldn't have just been done on impulse. It wasn't an accident. It was planned. Premeditated. He'd murdered us both. Over and over again. And he would keep doing it. Over and over again. Unless I stopped him. So I took the gun in my hand and I entered that house. I jumped the fence and smashed in the back door with a rock. Daryl came in from the garage to see what was happening, and I shot him twice. I know that at least one bullet hit him in the chest. I'm not too sure about the other one. I saw another man running out of the garage behind him. This one I recognized, but didn't know. I'd seen him at Daryl's a few times before, though. His brother, I think? He was around the same age as Daryl, and just as heavyset. He had just enough time to give me a wide-eyed look of horror before I blew him away. I fired 3 shots. 2 hit him in the head. Once he hit the ground, I let myself breathe a sigh of relief. I stepped over the bodies and into the garage. I found everything I needed to find in there. Gas cans, an assault rifle, a fucking floor plan of the building. All the proof anyone would ever need of what they were planning. Whoever would find the bodies would find this, and know that whoever had killed them had done the world a service. I felt content. Vindicated. I mean, I'd just done it, right? And then I heard it. The voice from the hall. Liam? That you? I recognized it. Daryl. His breath was raspy. He sounded weak. Slowly, I stepped out of the garage, gun still in hand. I found Daryl a few feet away from where I'd left him, a hand pressed to the wound in his chest. He'd pulled himself toward the nearby wall and propped himself up, but didn't seem to be able to move much beyond that. I stared at him, debating if I had it in me to shoot him in the head and get this over with, when he spoke again. "She's got her claws in you, doesn't she?" he asked. "How many go-arounds have you had?" I paused at that, and he just laughed before breaking down into a fit of coughing. "Yeah, I know all about that," he said. "She does it whenever someone manages to kill her. I think it's sort of a self-preservation technique. Change fate to keep herself alive. I was kind of afraid something like this might happen. I thought if we caught her while she was sleeping, it might be easier. No luck, I guess. What the hell are you talking about? I'd asked. Every time you die, you wake up in your own bed, don't you? He asked. And the day just starts all over again. Until you either die, or you get it right. How do you know about that? I demanded. 'Cause I've been there too, he rasped. For me, it was a shooting. Some mook came into the building and tried to put a bullet in the old bitch. Took me almost 10 rounds to go before I figured him out. Turns out he was her last victim, too. He was trying to get some revenge. That's why I told Kyle you couldn't just shoot the bitch. He looked over towards the dead man, before sighing and leaning his head against the wall. Guess that means we got her, he said. Although, I guess it doesn't matter much either way. Who? I asked. You're trying to tell me that someone's been causing the loops, right? Who is it? Amanda, he replied. That bitch at 1402. I ain't sure exactly what she is, but I know what she ain't. She ain't human. Some sort of parasite, I think. Feeding off the others in that building. Changing time whenever someone manages to kill her. Miss Yamanda? I repeated. You're sure? Positive, boy, he hissed, glaring into my eyes. And if you got half a brain, you'll listen to me. You'll understand that she needs to die. His skin had grown a little paler in the time we'd been talking. His hands were red with his own blood. His breathing was starting to grow more shallow, and his speech was interrupted by fits of coughing. Do the right thing, kid, he rasped. Kill the bitch. Once and for all. He drifted away after that, finally going silent. I left him and the other man where they lay, but I took their guns and their gasoline. I've spent the last few days thinking on what I should do next. Friday has turned to Saturday. Saturday has turned to Sunday. I've stored Daryl's supplies someplace safe, and I haven't said a word to Miss Yamanda. I don't know whether or not to believe what Daryl told me, but considering the fact that he knew about the time loop, I'm inclined to take him at his word. I've been doing some research, trying to find out what that thing we've been calling Miss Yamanda really is. I still don't have any answers, but I've come up with a plan. Daryl wanted to catch her while she was asleep. Maybe he was onto something there. I imagine it didn't work for him because the commotion from the fire woke her up. But maybe I can do things better. I'm working on getting a copy of the key to her front door. If I go in at night, maybe I can catch her off guard and kill her in her sleep. Hopefully, she won't even know what hit her. I've got no illusions that this is a perfect plan. Hell, maybe I'm just completely insane, and this whole thing has been nothing more than a break with reality. Who knows? But if I'm right, and this works, maybe it'll be worth it. Rose, if you never see me again, just know that I cared about you so much. You were my best friend, and I loved you with all my heart. I hope this isn't goodbye. But if it is, sell the apartment as soon as you can. Get as far away from Miss Yamanda as you can. Don't try and take her on yourself. Just run. I know that everything Liam wrote in here is insane. I know there's probably no way in hell that it's true. But like I said before, I've known Liam for years. He wouldn't have written any of this down unless he believed it was true. So where does that leave me? I've left the apartment to stay with my parents for a little while. Call me paranoid, but it makes me feel a little better being in another city, away from Miss Yamanda. And considering the story I saw on the news last night, I think I made the right call. Someone tried to burn down our building last night. But it's okay. Miss Yamanda made it out just in time. I saw her on the news, talking about how fortunate it was that one of the neighbors had helped her get out. Yes, how fortunate indeed. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow, and see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.